So I was looking back at looking ahead really to some of the provincial finals this weekend in the football. I was thinking Ulster, we're okay, it's going to be a good game. It's kind of hard to gee yourself up for Leinster and Munster this weekend, especially what we've seen over the last couple of years. So Dublin have won 8 Leinster titles in a row, Kerry have won 8 of the last 9 in Munster. So instead of looking forward, I decided to look back a little bit and look back at some of the heydays of the 2 underdogs this weekend of Cork and Meath. And funnily enough, 8 out of 9, the current run that Kerry are on, is exactly the record that Cork put up in the late 80s and early 90s when they were on their golden era. This, of course, made far more impressive by the fact that this was coming right off the back of the Kerry golden era. So I went back to Monday, July the 27th. So this was after July the 26th when you had the Munster and Leinster finals on that day. The day where it kind of changed for Meath and for Cork. And there was actually the biggest sports story of the day that morning, leading the front pages. But no, it was not the Munster final, it was not the Leinster final. Let's have a look at what the Irish Independent was leading with. It was Stephen Roche and Charles Haughey together conquering the roads of France. Triumphant Roche rides into Sports Hall of Fame.
I mean, it's not Stephen Roche and Charles Haughey. It's a picture of Charlie Haughey and Stephen Roche has his arm around him. That's what that is.
Well, exactly. His teammate.
The centre of the picture, when you look at it,
it's actually Charles Haughey.
Yeah.
It's remarkable. It's
not even close. Like, he's kind of just a sidekick.
Jack Chirac is somewhere around there as well, according to reports. The Irish Examiner also goes with it, or Sean Pellize, Tour de Roche as Irish Revel in Victory. And then the Irish Press goes with this. Stephen Hero, big welcome home today. Just going through some of this, there was a big battle to actually claim Stephen Roche as Irish. Was there a sense of insecurity in this country around the idea that France were trying to claim him?
Married to a French woman at
well,
this age.
That was one of the reasons why they pointed out.
Stephen Hero's a Joycean reference that I'm not sure most Common or Garden readers are getting, are they?
I certainly didn't get it. This has become a common occurrence where cultural references just fly over my head, so that's another one that's gone over my head. So naturally, obviously, because of that, the Leinster-Munster finals are a little bit down the sports agenda. Just to remind people what actually happened, so it was a draw in Páirc Uí Chaoimh that day between Kerry and Cork. Let's have a listen to some of the commentary in RTE.
Well into injury time in the Munster final. Back to Mikey Sheahan, Mikey the captain, looking for the Kerry goal that will seal it. Is it there? Yes it is, I don't believe it! Oh, absolutely unbelievable! Billy Morgan, his side has given it everything. Is it Mike Sheahan? There's a chance of an equalising score for Cork. And Larry Tompkins, the man who's scored 7 points so far, has this free. 2 minutes into injury time from the 20-metre line. Breeze behind him. Slightly to the left of the post. The most vital kick I think he's ever taken. In his first Munster Championship match, the Kildare man can level it up. He's done just that!
Great to see Kildare getting a reference there.
In his first Munster Championship match.
Yeah, this was the revelation. It's no coincidence that the tide started to turn in Munster when Larry Tompkins comes to Cork. That is the impact he had. Those scenes are incredible. Billy Morgan on all fours, just devastated at the ground when Mikey Sheahan scores a slightly controversial goal because it looks like he took a million steps. But then they get one more free and Larry Tompkins knocks it over. It's interesting actually looking at the papers today, or from that day I should say. Let's have a look at what the Examiner was saying that morning. They said Cork caught napping, cheeky Sheahan gets Kerry off the hook. The Irish Independent then went with it's grand larceny Kerry style, late Sheahan goal earns Kerry lucky draw. We can also see Meath confirm their dominance over Dubs, which we'll come back to in just a moment. Let's have a closer look then at what the Independent was saying. So late Sheahan goal earns lucky draw. An act of grand larceny was carried out in Páirc Uí Chaoimh yesterday. The perpetrators were a familiar group of men in green and gold from Kerry. The mastermind of Mikey Sheahan, who in a career spanning 13 years had often been a force of frustration to Cork. And we also have this. The immigrant from Kildare, this is around Larry Tompkins, started his first Munster final in outstanding style and nearly turned the first half into a one-man show. In the second period, his direct opponent Tom Spillane turned on the power. As well as negating Tompkins, the Kerry man steadied his own team and was chiefly responsible for the fact that the crowd is still in their possession, at least for another week. The Crown, I should say, is still in their possession. This was not a football game of great quality, but it was full of drama and had the nerve ends tingling all through for an hour. Even Stephen Roche had to settle for being number 2 on the agenda. The quotes from the game are actually fascinating because this is clearly a bit of needle that's built up around him. The job could be finished off was one of the things that the people were saying. You don't bite the dog twice, which kind of suggests that this was Cork's chance and they missed it. Micko was generous to Cork. This is sorry about the blurriness of this. So Micko Dwyer was generous to a certain extent. He says, I knew they were going to give us a game. They are the team of all the talents. particularly the two players from Kildare. Not ready to give any credit to the actual Cork players. Jack O'Shea then said that someone lost concentration when Sheehy's goal went in. That was for the Tompkins equaliser, but it was great to get a draw, and we were making a lot of money for the GAA too. What a pity we can't get some of it, he says. And then Cork weren't happy with the steps that Mikey Sheehy took. John Curran said, I'm firmly of the opinion that Mikey was playing for a penalty. He took at least 10 to 12 steps with the ball. I was waiting to hear the referees whistle for a free when the ball deflected off my body and into the net. There is no way he could have played it legally, as there was 4 of us surrounding him at the time, said Anthony Davis. So Cork were not happy. We will come back to that in just a moment, but let's just stick with this day, because you also on that day had Meath beating Dublin. We can have a look at the teams here, just kind of a great throwback to the time. So if you're looking at any of the Dublin players here in the back row, I'm sure you can spot them. You don't need me to name them out, but just in case, you've got Barney Rock, you've got Joe McNally, John O'Leary, Dave Sinnott, Declan Bulger, Jerry Hargan and Kieran Duff there on the back right. And then left, right in the front row, you've got Charlie Redmond, Mick Kennedy, David Delap, Noel McCaffrey, David Carroll, Eamon Heary, Mick Galvin and Anto McCall. They're hard men, but there's one team that hot take, would say is harder than them, and it is this team. It is the Meath team.
This might be the hardest team of all time.
Of all time, I think it's fair to say. So, the back row there, you've Colm O'Rourke, not looking at the camera, that's how hard he was, looking anywhere but the camera. You've got Mick Lyons, PJ Gillick.
Hang on. Mick Lyons is stealing your soul through the camera. So, whatever about Colm not looking at it, Mick Lyons is staring straight down the lens of all of the cameras simultaneously, and you are quaking in your boots because Mick Lyons has looked at you. He's got those Mona Lisa eyes that follow you wherever you go.
Do you ever look at those really old photos where the people didn't know that they had to smile or didn't really know what a camera was, or kind of tried to freak you out through centuries and centuries of photography? That's what Mick Lyons is doing right there.
PJ Gillick.
Yeah.
Mickey McQuillan.
Exactly.
Jerry McEntee.
Yeah. He was in the papers this morning.
Martin O'Connell. Brian Stafford.
Yeah.
David Beggy.
Yeah. You're doing well here.
Jesus. Who's that?
Got Matty McCabe there.
Okay, so sub Matty McCabe generally. Beside him, don't know, Bernard Flynn.
Terry Ferguson, then Bernard Flynn.
Bernard Flynn, Robbie O'Malley. Who's got the fancy gloves?
You got to get this one.
Oh, it's Liam Hayes.
Liam Hayes, and then 2 more.
It's his son is on the team now. He's the hardest of hard bastards.
Yeah, Liam Harnan. And Kevin Foley completing the team there. That is an unbelievably hard team. Let's have a look at what the newspapers were saying the next morning. The Irish press went with Meath. At last, Dublin have no answer as 2 are sent off. Eerie silence and dejection greets the Dubs. And the Examiner goes with this. Meath march on. Colm O'Rourke, vital points for Meath as they won on a 113 to 12-point scoreline. The match report for the Irish Independent is telling. It tells you kind of about where Meath are at the time, that Dublin are really still kings of Leinster, even though they'd been beaten the previous year. So Meath footballers need no longer doff the cap of deference to arch rivals Dublin. Yesterday at Croke Park, Meath defeated Dublin far more decisively than the score suggests in a bone-crushing Leinster Championship final of almost frightening competitive intensity. Admittedly, just 4 points separated the sides at the end in a pulsating and highly entertaining contest. The Leinster Championship final win over Dublin is invariably greatly treasured by Meath folk, and lending additional satisfaction to yesterday's success is the fact that it marks the first occasion for the Royal County to record 2 successive provincial decider victories over their great rivals. This is an interesting line from the match report. They said, by failing to avenge last year's Leinster final defeat, Dublin thus did not follow the lead set by City colleague Stephen Roach. Just before the throw-in, it was publicly announced and also relayed on the electric scoreboard that the Dubliner had triumphed in the Tour de France, and the 49,000 attendants, including referee Seamus Aldridge, broke into spontaneous and vociferous applause. A great kind of crossover of sport there. Martin Brehony's report, though, in the Irish press is unbelievable. This was the hardest of hard games. There isn't actually any footage of it online. Anybody who remembers it, we'd love to hear about it, or anybody who was there. So he says, raw intensity is an integral part of most championship games, but yesterday, that delicate line which differentiates between violence and over-enthusiasm was breached on far too many occasions. Some of the sad evidence of the case is contained in the referee's notebook, which in the end had the names of 2 players, Charlie Redmond and Kevin Foley, as well as notes of warning to Eamon Heary, Robbie O'Malley, Mick Lyons, Declan Bulger and David Carroll. Foley and Redmond were sent off by Seamus Aldridge 25 minutes into the first half after several players had been involved in a punch-up right in front of the Hogan stand. Wouldn't be like Meath. That had been sparked off by an off-the-ball incident in which Kieran Duff was floored. But if that was the flashpoint which finally convinced Aldridge that serious action had to be taken, much had gone before, which was no part in any civilised sport. So just to tie this up, that was Meath obviously true. They would become All-Ireland champions. Cork would become like a mere footnote to Meath in that case, but there would not be a footnote in Munster Championship history because the tide was about to turn a week later. It was not to be a one-hit wonder. Let's have a listen to what happened in Killarney in the replay.
Easily read by Tony Nation, who's playing just about anywhere and everywhere for Cork. Paddy Hayes here. Inside towards Christy Ryan. He got a couple of yards space that time ahead of Sean Welsh. Waits, looks for support. It comes from Tony Davis, the right corner back. Oh, yes, he's kicked it over. Charlie Nelligan, I think, was arguing that it was wide, but it's Cork's 6th point, and it comes from their right corner back. Cork now doing what Kerry have done to them so often in the past. Ambrose O'Donovan now operating in the full forward line. Back to Jack O'Shea, going for a goal. He's content with the point again for the second point inside 2 minutes for Jack O'Shea. Could so easily have been a goal. And there's the whistle. Cork are the champions in what surely is the end of a glorious era of Kerry football. Cork win by 13 points to a goal and 5.
The end of an era indeed. The Irish Independent led with this the following morning. Cork grab glory as Kerry era collapses. The circus is over. It's time for a new act, it says in the top. Let's have a closer look at the quotes here because an emotional Mick O'Dwyer, tears welling in his eyes, faced the Kerry team who sat motionless in their dressing room and said, "You've given 13 wonderful years of service to the game. You have been fantastic in every way, and I want to thank you all sincerely for your total loyalty and dedication. I know some of you will not be thinking of retirement, but I ask you not to make any final decisions immediately. You've been a credit to yourselves in the game of football. It has been a privilege to work with this team, and I just want to say thanks a million." With that, O'Dwyer too sat on the bench. It was a poignant moment in that square room in Fitzgerald Stadium. One sensed it was the end of a wonderful era, the finish of the greatest football team to ever grace the scene. It was not the time to ask about retirements, but I feel that Eoin de Bomberlisten summed up the scene best of all when he told me, "I think it's time to pull down the tent and move on. The circus is over. It's time for a new act."
That's mad. So you got to picture the scene. All the media are there. Like that dressing room is full of people. It's not just the team and the manager. It's like there's probably 50 people in there, all watching what's going on, and Mick has to shush the room and say that, and the 3 journalists who are on the beat are writing it all down, and then they go over to Bomber, and Bomber comes up with that line, and it's brilliant.
It's an amazing line, isn't it?
Like in that moment when you've just been beaten at the end of the greatest run that any team has ever had in Irish sport up to that point, like the greatest team of all time, you're the era defining, you're the mark against which every other team will ever be, and you're like, the circus is over, it's time to pull down the tent.
And it will be one of 8 and 9 years that Cork will do the exact same run that Kerry are on at the moment. So there's a bit of a parallel there. Like, are you going to see upsets of that manner this weekend? Probably not.
Cork do 8 of the next 9?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, like that was the start of the greatest Cork football team ever.
Yeah. On
the back of the greatest Kerry football team of ever. Like, I think there's definitely some truth in the idea that greatness breeds greatness. The thing that was happening over the border must have spurred them on a little bit. Also, going to Portugal, their man didn't.
Oh, man, 2 of them.
Harm them, 2 of them, yeah.
2 of them. Their best 2 players that year. I mean, that team had loads of great players on it, but Tompkins was the best footballer in the country that season. And
yeah,
after.
It certainly seemed that way. That's it. Look back, not forward, is what I say when it comes to provincial finals.
Wow. 1987. All right. So that Meath team, were they the hardest team of all time? That's not a bad conversation to get started today. If you've got any views on that. The Tyrone team, the Naughties, they were pretty hard.
Extremely hard.
Different hard.
Yeah, I would say Tyrone, just because I've had
they beat Kerry 3 times.
I've suffered at the hands of them.
That's a different conversation. We will have that one